Hello, YouTube, and Enid Oklahomans, if you're watching this. I'm here to complain about something that is utilized, known as parallel parking, alright? Which is usually required to park in places like this. Okay? Why is parallel parking a thing? Why is it required? Why do these kind of spots exist? They're unsafe. For starters, alright? If we have a drunk driver or someone who's just tired trying to get a work driver wrong, there's a chance that someone may not see a dude sticking out because you will be sticking out initially when trying to parallel park. So what happens is, boom, right there, back of his fucking vehicle. Doesn't notice the person trying to parallel park. Sees them off to the side just a little bit, thinks they're parked. Boom! That's it. That's all it takes. One. That vehicle looks like it was just rear-ended, by the way. Anyway, case in point, this is unsafe. Alright? This is completely unsafe to do. I don't know why parallel parking is required. Sure, there are people who can do it, and if they can, more power to them. But I don't think it should be part of the license requirement. It should be optional. And thus, people who can perform the maneuver need to find, hey, a normal parking spot like this that every location in existence usually has. A normal parking spot. I feel like that should be an optional part of the test and not required, because it is very easy to park in any of these other situations around Enid, Oklahoma, and not need to parallel park. If you need to parallel park, it should be seen as an unsafe maneuver, especially when there is so little gap between two vehicles like this. An uphill or downhill park should be the standard, not this. You think these vehicles are safe? That's funny. Drunk driver comes along, swerving along, boom, gonna hit the back of that person. They get hit forward from the impact. Boom, this person's gonna get hit. That building's gonna take some damage for sure. All because of one idiot. Instead of having something like a dedicated parking spot that every place should have, that you can just drive on into, just turn on into. No need for a complicated left, right, parallel parking maneuver. Just drive on in. If you want, I'd argue that these parallel parking spots are nothing more than a greed play by our government. You know why? Because every accident that happens makes them money. And it's so easy because either you drive just a little too far back or a little too far forward, and that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And I can pull out just fine. But having to do that complicated left-right maneuver to get in a parking spot like this, that should be seen as unsafe, and it should not be required at all. Alright, here's another thing. Alright? Come up from behind, bash into it, boom, boom. You got a fucking chain collision going on here. Whereas in a normal parking spot, alright, like say something right here, you get bashed into from behind, well, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to go forward a little bit, which, something like this is unsafe. But here's the thing. You're not going to hit multiple vehicles. Alright, you're not going to hit multiple vehicles because A, vehicles aren't designed to go side to side. So, if vehicle comes up and hits you from behind, alright, You're not going to go making a chain impact, should say the brakes fail or something like that, on impact, which is very likely. But then to top it all off, okay, if you hit a vehicle from the side, all right, at most, the person next to you gets hit. You don't have a fucking chain reaction going on from the impact. Because vehicles aren't designed to go side to side. Unless you give them the functionality someday, in which case, I'd love to see that. Because then parallel parking would be stupidly easy. You just have to do the side to side. Cha cha cha. But vehicles aren't made to cha cha cha. So, make this the standard and stop requiring parallel parking. It's unsafe. Alright? There is no reason to require parallel parking in anywhere part of the world. And to go ahead and showcase the state's location for parallel parking. Let me pull this up real fast. It's not going to let me do it like that. Let's make this easy. So, if I go over to where the state is located, about right in there, if I remember right. A little too far. Pull back a little. Yeah, I missed it by far. Try that again. Okay, so where is it? I think this is close enough. Theory? No, far from it. There they are. Let's just start from here, it'll be easier. Alright, so here we are. Alright, so there's also an issue with the instructors of the Highway Patrol versus Bison Driving School, right? When they teach you to do parallel parking, they teach you to go past the spot where you want to park and then pull in, alright? But look at how little room there is for you to go past. Alright? You will not be able to parallel park like that. If you go up to here, alright, you're gonna risk hitting that fence. You're gonna, pretty much roll over into the grass in order to properly perform the maneuver. There isn't enough room. Alright, furthermore, I still say if you have to be this close to vehicles like that, alright, from a forward and back perspective, that's unsafe. Alright? That's unsafe. Parallel parking should not be a required thing. Give enough room for them to perform an uphill or downhill park. And hey, if you want to make an uphill or downhill park a thing, maybe tilt this downwards, dig it out if you need to, and then do yourself a favor and just have like a different spot. Like say either just a little ways down. Just right here, just have a little upward slope that people have to work with. Or, even better, which is what my mother helped me to do to learn uphill and downhill parking in a apartment complex. Not this one. Let me teleport over to it. So right around here, right? By the Jackson tax service and all that stuff. Well, not this. Why did it put me here? This is not where I dropped. Or maybe it is, and I just don't remember the road too well. Anyway, where is the spot? I need to find the Oakwood Mall. That looks like the yeah, that's the Oakwood Mall, because there's the Chick-fil-A, so here's the Oakwood Mall. In here, right about there. Alright. There's a great spot to practice parallel parking. Or not parallel parking, but uphill and downhill. Which should be, in my opinion, the standard. The gold standard, not parallel parking. Parallel parking needs to be done away with. Alright? Even in situations where you would need to park on the curb like this, uphill and downhill parking gets you through. Alright? I guarantee you none of these vehicles are uphill, downhill parked. They're just, there. You can go through Google Maps and find like several vehicles. They're just parked on the side of the curb like that. That's easy to do. Just drive up to it. Where on the flip side, and this is what I was talking about, right here, you got a perfect uphill slope and a downhill slope that you can do back and forth over and again by doing loops. It's a perfect spot to practice the uphill and downhill park. You even got little curbs here to let you know when a person fucked it up. So, in my strong opinion, alright, and I believe that it should be done away with, parallel parking needs to not be required in any situation, no matter what. I realize, alright, that you have locations that require it somewhere in the world. And Oklahoma ain't one of them. And if you ask me, there's no excuse for parallel parking to be required in any situation. Alright? Walmart, for example. When are you going to need to parallel park? Alright? You can just do a normal park. I've done it so many times. But this one fucking maneuver has stopped me from getting my license, and I just have to ask why. Why is this required? Because it does not make sense. It's an unsafe maneuver, a complicated maneuver, and there's so many different ways to do it. It's stupid. Because I keep getting told multiple different things by several different instructors. Do y'all have like no script, no standards, no nothing? Look, even at Aldi's. Where are you going to need to parallel park? There's a no parking zone right here for good reason. How about safety first instead of requiring people to perform a complicated maneuver just so y'all can get some dollar bills? I see no reason to believe that this is not the state's secret method of getting dollar bills, is to force people to learn an unsafe maneuver that is complicated and deny anyone a license or the ability to drive if they cannot do it. Like, I'm fucking flabbergasted. Get rid of parallel parking. It's not safe. There's no reason anyone should ever need to do it. If they need to do it between vehicles that are that close together, maybe they shouldn't be trying to park there to begin with. I mean, come on, when there's that little room, when there is that little room. All right, let's take another prime example here. Look at these vehicles, all right? There is at least a full vehicle distance, or at least a half a vehicle distance, between you and another driver. All right? And furthermore, you're not having to do a side-to-side, cha-cha-cha. You don't need to do that shit on the road, on the main road. So why For the love of God, explain to me why it is you have this type of parking maneuver required at all. Why does it exist? Do away with those cones. Force people to just drive up and park normally. Is that so difficult? Sure, maybe have them, try to get between them like a certain standard, like, you know, maybe move this like back a little ways, one more vehicle length, so we can do like a normal uphill park or downhill park instead of whatever it is you're trying to make people do. This is unsafe. When there is that little room, at bare minimum, those cones should be all the way back. This should be like at this crack at least. If there is not that much room between you and another person, maybe you shouldn't be trying to park there. Heck, even on Family Guy, the whole parallel parking thing, a whole fucking chicken fight happened. Because Peter backed into someone. Which, dare I say, means the vehicles are far too fucking close to one another. You shouldn't have to park that damn... Good God. What the fuck is this? Really? Bruh. Halsby Tire Company? Do us a favor and take a new screenshot of this. God damn. This is stupid. He finally got around to, like, get that shithead out of the way. That's trailers, man. I feel bad for the people who have to drive that stuff, because that's just an extra set of complications all on its own. Like, at that point, yeah, maybe you would need to learn parallel parking, but not for standard transportation of vehicles. Like, I don't get it. Alright, and let's just go one step further, alright, here. This is just for Enid, Oklahoma, alright? Let's go to another location. Alright? Let's take, for example, this nice, lovely little place here, Oklahoma. Where are you going to need to parallel park, by the way? Got a gas station. It's got plenty of parking spots. Same goes for this little side business here, whatever it is. The cafe's even got the standard parking spots. You don't need parallel parking for that. Where are you going to need to put the parallel park, by the way? You're going to need to park between two vehicles in a neighborhood? Well, maybe you shouldn't be trying to park in between vehicles that are that close to one another. I mean, let's assume, alright, that there is a vehicle right here and right here. Like, where this trailer kind of is. Just assume there's like a vehicle kind of in front of it. Dude either has it moved to the garage or whatever. In what situation are you going to need to parallel park at this location? You a visitor? Well, there's a plenty of road right along here. Just, go forward or heck, maybe park literally a little bit more forward. Just, same fucking building. There's plenty of room. You can just drive up, park it in. Even some apartment complexes. Let me take my apartment complex as an example here. All right. Let's pull up my home. My apartment complex here. I'm doxing myself. Woohoo! I don't give a fuck. Alright. We got plenty of parking spaces. I've parked here so many times it's not funny. In what situation am I going to need to parallel park? If I'm parallel parking along this road, I'm a fucking idiot asking to get hit. Because this is a main road. What, you want to say that we're going to park, like, horizontally along here? Yeah, that's not required. That's, yeah, there's lines there, by the way. Or at least they're supposed to be. They're probably covered up, but they were probably covered up by the snow. That and you probably can't see them. I can't go in there. Why? Oh, whatever. Anyway, so plenty of parking space, and there's plenty over there too. You don't need to parallel park for it, even if there's two vehicles. I've parked between them just fine without it. And just go right in. So, in what world and why is parallel parking required? Hmm? All right. Let's take this one step further. All right. Let's go to a smaller apartment complex where there's less room for, little less wiggle room. Let's take my grandma's, for example. All right. I'm not going to show her exact spot for obvious reasons. Wait, what the fuck? How did I? Hello? That is not what I had in mind. Where is the... Really? They removed it. Bruh. Get me out! Okay. Try this again. It put me all the way in there, really? Alright. There's the Pizza Hut. I can just go from there. Alright. First of all, you're a dumbass if you're parking out here. In there, several parking spots that can be parked into normally without parallel parking. Alright. And here's my grandma's apartment, and guess what? Look at that. Plenty of parking spaces for whoever may live here. Why would you ever need to parallel park? And let me tell you, an uphill downhill park is more than enough to park in between the spaces here, which, nobody should be doing, but you can see down there. I bet that's my mom. How much you want to bet? Anyway, so let's argue for the sake that maybe another city, like a big one, not just a small one, would require you to parallel park a little more. So you know what? Let's go to the big one. Let's go to the capital city itself, all right? Where all the El Stupido drivers are located, as anyone in this... as anyone in this who's ever lived in Oklahoma would know. If you've ever been to OKC, all right, where would you need to parallel park? Let's take a look. Let's see, over here we've... Oh, that changed real quick, didn't it? Alright, so over here we've got a bunch of parking spots. You can easily walk to wherever it is you need to go. Alright? I don't see why you'd need to parallel park there. In fact, look inside. You can see that there is more than enough room that you do not need to parallel park. You can just slide it all on in. Alright? Parallel parking is usually used for when you need to get on the side of the road between two vehicles. But in my strong opinion, if those vehicles are close enough to neck together that you cannot roll up and park normally, you should not be trying to park there. Alright? And at every location that I'm seeing so far, right, we got a little dedicated, drive through right here. Do not enter, anyway. Here's the Chesapeake Park. However you say that. Energy Arena? I guess it comes kind of sports arena, it looks like? Yeah, the Thunder Arena. And let me tell ya, they have nice lovely, the biggest parking imaginable. All right, look at that. Plenty of space for normal parking. This is dumb. Just throwing that out there. This is unsafe. These are too close to one another. It only takes one person backing up to try and make a turnout, and they're going to hit somebody. They're just tired from a Thunder game, had one too many. That's all it takes. They're going to slam into somebody. I'll bet it happens daily. Or every Thunder game. Who knows? Anyway, case in point. Oh, but I guess the government has to make their money somehow. I do think that parallel parking is just dumb and a greed sort of deal. Like, if it's that fucking close, alright, they should not be parked like that. Alright? That is unsafe. Alright? Not only that, there are plenty of normal parking spots that should be utilized. Why are you on the side of the road like this, trying to park like that? All of this should be a no parking zone. Like, not only that, it's on the main, like, on a pathway, on a road. You shouldn't be parking like this. Oh, wait. Hold on. Look at that. There's enough room that you can just do a normal park. You don't need to do parallel parking. Hey, it's the smart thing. Enough space. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the kind of space you need to do parking. The smart thing. Look at that. The smart thing. You can just do an uphill, downhill park, whatever. You don't need parallel parking for this. The smart thing. Enough space between each vehicle. And this is just dumb. This right here is just dumb. Like, seriously. We have parking spaces like that, yeah. Alright? We do. And I can park in them just fine. Without the need of parallel parking. Why is there not this? If you want to have vehicles lined up like this should be the gold standard right here. Not whatever the fuck this is over here. There is a astronomical difference. Enough room that if the vehicle does end up moving, alright, you've got enough leeway to catch your mistake. You know, say the brake isn't engaged or something like that. It starts rolling forward either because of the wind being strong. I mean, we've had 50 mile per hour winds, no problem. But something like this, you wouldn't have the time to correct your mistake. You get out of the vehicle, starts moving forward a little. You'd have enough time to jump back in before it makes contact. This situation right here, you don't have that. When vehicles are this fucking close to one another, it should be seen as an absolute embarrassment. A smart driver does not do this. But then again, OKC does not have smart drivers. Everybody knows that. It's a common saying. Everybody knows. Even OKC itself, full of teenagers and whatever else, constantly causing mayhem. But yeah, even situations like this is dumb. Way too fucking close. There's only a human gap between there. Like, my fat ass would fit through that. I'd be brushing both vehicles. This right here. This. Okay, this. This is the smart thing. This is the smart thing right here. Enough room between two vehicles that you can just drive up, no problem. So why is this not the standard? Why is this not the gold standard? Leaving enough room between each parking spot to allow a person to park without needing to do a left-right maneuver to wiggle their way into a tight spot like that location I showed at the stadium. Like this up here even. All right. I believe there's another spot. All right. Look at that. More than enough room between both these vehicles. Yeah, there is no issue. All right. Looking over there. All right. Normal parking spots. You don't need to parallel park. In this, well, this is just. It's close. You could get it in there, no problem. With a normal uphill park. You don't need parallel park. Oops. So, like, you could park that normally, no problem. You got more than enough room. No need for a parallel park. All right. You can just slide her on up and in. There is enough room between the two spots. All right. I would even happily demonstrate if given the chance that you can just like let's I wish I could have like a simulated vehicle just come up in here and just control it to park in there. Like all you'd have to do, go up and in, all right, turn it inwards so that you straighten it out. And what else do you need? Just drive up in and then just turn it a little, straighten out. There you go. Like you do not need to do parallel parking. You've got enough room. Unless we're in, like, in my opinion, most of the vehicles where, most of the situations where you need parallel parking is a result of the parking space being way too close to another vehicle. Look at that. More than enough room between the two that you could just park it normally. You could park this normally. Like, say this was right here, and that was right there. You could park it normally. The time when you would need parallel parking is when it's unsafe. Like that shit right there, where there's less than a human length of gap between the two. My fat ass wouldn't be able to fit through there. My point is, this is not safe. Alright? At least a half a vehicle of distance should be between the two. Alright? If it is so close together that this is not what you see, like if you don't have this much of a gap between the two vehicles, it should not be seen as safe to try and park there. Alright? So, if you ask me, like, look at that. There's more than enough room. Okay, that's ugly. That person's over the line. But anyway, case in point. Uh, there's more than enough room. As long as you don't have a dumbass like this who is sticking his head out. Anyway. Yeah, look at that. There's still enough of a gap between those two. You're not going to hit by doing just a drive up and park normally. You're not going to hit someone even if someone's behind you as long as they're not like that other guy and sticking his head over into the other parking spot. So, why is parallel parking a thing on the driving test? Alright, why can't we just go up and park normally? Like every parking space in existence is designed to be. The only time you would need parallel parking is against dumbass drivers who shouldn't be driving to begin with. Even this is enough leeway. And then we have situations like this where it's just why. Like, why? You three are way too close to one another. A prime example of bad driving. Like, you shouldn't be hugging a person's tires. There is no way this person can see those tires. At least the bottom of them. If you cannot see the bottom of a person's tire, you are way too close. That's what my mother taught me. And I'd say it's a pretty fucking good standard. Now, I may be tall as fuck, so I'm 6 foot too. So I can see him a little more where she can't. But even so, she's got a point. If you cannot see that person's tires, you are too fucking close to them. And that remains true on the highway, everywhere. Alright? Now I'm going to go back to my local example because OKC drivers are an absolute embarrassment. But even on the main highway, alright? Let me go back to pull up that example. Right? Even here, alright? You give enough room. What the fuck is this? Oh, he's on the other side of the road. Okay. So, you give enough leeway to allow yourself to brake, especially. But then, at stoplights, where you're stopped, okay? How much room do you need to not bash into someone? Well, as my mother, as I have stated, taught me, you should be able to see the back of the person's tires and look at the difference in gap. Every person here, right? Every person has a minimum of distance between each vehicle, and that is remain the case between each screenshot. So, in a parking situation, let's assume you had to park in between. If you're trying to park in between something like that, you better get smashed in the fucking head. My point is, parallel parking is only needed in situations where it is dangerous to park. You should not need it as part of the driving test because it is not safe to do parallel parking. This is what I was going to showcase here. Look at that. There is a huge amount, sure, these are reserved parking spaces, but you get enough room that you can just park up normally, no problem, alright? And even, vehicles are designed to go back and forth. You don't... Wow, that's an absolute embarrassment. There's way more than over the line. Yeah, there's a lot of dumbass drivers daily. Fortunately, that's the harsh reality. See, you wouldn't be doing this right here. Normally. You wouldn't be trying to pull out like that. You get out into the road all the way. Dude's only probably doing that because there's, no spots. Anyway, case in point. Oh. If I go through Google Maps, I could see a ton of local driving that is just an absolute embarrassment. I know even I do better. I have demonstrated that I can do better many times over. There's lazy and then there's this. And yet these people probably have a license while I don't. My point is, stop enforcing parallel parking because in any situation where you would need it, should be treated as an unsafe park. You're too close to another vehicle if you need to parallel park. All right? I'd argue even these people are parking way too close to one another, but that's just me. But I can still make this park normally without needing to parallel park. But then we have the instructors at the state and Bison who will make you do this stupid maneuver that should not be required and is arguably very unsafe to do. I don't know who invented parallel parking, but here's the thing, buddy. It should be optional and not required. Fuck, I went too far again. But, as I was saying, here we go, right on top of it. Bingo book. This is unsafe. If there is that little room between you and another vehicle, it is unsafe and you should not be trying to park there. Right? There is no reason that you should have to slip a vehicle in between these cones. There is no situation where you would need to slip between those cones. And I say it multiple times because some thickheads out there don't get the picture. But I don't get why we need to park in between such a small area. Left, right, just wiggle it back and forth to get in a parallel parking state. Seriously? Seriously? Look at every situation in real life and you can see there is more than enough room. In fact, put the amount of room there was, all right? You had that much room and then this much room. All right, about half a vehicle distance, all right? Trying to measure it just from here to the cone. This is about an average size vehicle and the cone should be more like right here and right here. Like, just go up and park. Just drive it in. Give yourself enough room so that you're not needing to do stupid shit. You shouldn't need to do this left, right nonsense. Just, like, they make you, in order to actually do a parallel park on this type of thing, which in my opinion is completely unsafe, I hate trying to explain it because it's very complicated to do. You have to drive up, right, past, which there's no room to, by the way. You can't go past. All right? You have to go past. Wiggle your way, like, drive backwards where you're sticking out, and any drunk driver can just be like, boom! And you go spinning to the right. Anyway, case in point, you come back, all right, and then you have to find a way to straighten it out. But the problem is, going back like that, you're sticking out. Whereas with just a normal park, you just get straight into the spot. You're not sticking out like a sore thumb, waiting for a drunk driver to just be like, shoo. Because all it takes is one person not paying attention and case in point. Enid, Oklahoma, and pretty much any driving location out there. Why is parallel parking required? What situation, other than an unsafe one that you shouldn't be trying to park in, would you require this? I don't buy it. When vehicles are that close to one another, you shouldn't be trying to park like that to begin with. Move the cones back. Remove parallel parking as a requirement and just require people to park alongside the curb. It should not be that complicated. If there is not enough room for you to do that, it should be treated as an unsafe deal. If they can't do that, they shouldn't be driving. But this is dumb. There is not enough room for any vehicle to park reasonably. Crap like what I showed at the stadium should not be a thing. They're too close. And that's where I stand. That's where I personally stand with all of this. This is my basically protest because they failed me twice for that parallel parking. All right. I really need a huge explanation as to why. This is required because this is not safe. If you cannot drive up to it normally, because parallel parking leaves you sticking out. All right. It just does. All right. When you back in, either from forward or side, all right, you're sticking out for quite a while until you can get the maneuver done. All right. Let's assume you come up like this, which is what I try to do. All right. You got to go. And in between these two cones, which are very close to one another, you got to drive up, turn the wheel, straighten out, go forward, and then in. And I just don't get it. Why is all of this required? And then straighten it out. Like, you got to go inward and then, finally in place. That's complicated and unsafe because you're going to be sticking out like a sore thumb. Just give people enough room to actually park. Why are you trying to overcomplicate things? Because you are trying to overcomplicate things, in my opinion, like this, that just makes drivers even less likely to be safe. Because they're doing these complicated maneuvers that require you to back and forth like that, leaving them sticking out in the middle of the road. Just let them park normally. Give enough space, for an average uphill, downhill park. There you go. What's so hard about that? That's my question. Why can't we just do normal parking? Why do we need to parallel park? Because in every parallel parking type of situation that I can think of, it's unsafe to even attempt that. Because you're sticking out like a sore thumb. Anyway, I'm going on and on like this because I need to get it through their thick heads. Anyway, GamerX459, peace out.